ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Rise Urban Nation. It's your guy in the building, Terrell Simmons. I got a special guest. This brother right here is about to drop financial literacy. He gonna drop more financial literacy on you than a Earn Your Leisure episode. No pressure. Ah, but this is my good friend, my brother, Mr. Irvin Spencer. Irvin Spencer, how are you doing this fine day, sir?
Man, I am awesome, man. That's the best way to put it. I'm awesome. God is good.
Yes, I love that. I love that we starting that energy with awesome. Now, I I want to. I, I always a little fuzzy about how we met, but tell for the people just to get a sense of us and our connection. How did we first meet?
Man, you know it's funny. We met at the library, downtown library. It was at one of
Oh
Jarvis events.
yeah, I remember
Um,
that.
and that's as soon as I recall. Um, personally, like I'm a observative person, and
But
I think me just passed cross in the parking garage, and I just reached out, started talking to you from there. But we have bumped into each other maybe a couple other times too, either at Symphony Towers or somewhere
mm-hmm.
else. And
Yeah,
also the other thing I always see you at, that's where I see you at, is some stuff in the community. I was at one of the Ties events,
brothers
so I
with
saw you
ties. Yeah.
there. Brothers with Ties, and then I did some stuff with Blue Heart Foundation as well too. So I saw you in all these other events, working in the community, helping kids and stuff, and just kept, mutual attraction.
Yeah. Likewise, and I remember having that instant connection and I remember our first meeting, like, well, not our first meeting, but when we met, somewhere downtown, like I think it was right across from your office building. We had chopped it up. I think we was only supposed to be for there for like maybe a 30, 45 minute conversation. We was there for hours just chopping it up. I was like, yeah, I gotta stay in contact with this brother, and we stayed in contact ever since. He's been helping my family out with with life situations. You've educated me, so I'm glad that God has put us in the right paths, and then and to loop back to Blue Heart Foundation and so forth. Want to give a special shout out to them and just acknowledgement to our dear brother Tracy, who has left us from the physical earth, but to go and do other great things and be in peace and paradise. So rest in power to my brother Tracy.
Yeah, that hit me too. I sent you that message and asked about that because um, he put so much into the kids that he got a chance to work with. And I was like, man, we just as a community, we can't let that work fall by the wayside, man. He put so much love and effort into it. Um, but yeah, I'm thankful for
Yeah,
him too and the work that he did.
that we definitely won't, because brothers like me and you, when we get together, we make sure that we provide knowledge, wisdom, information, and connections to whoever we got in our pipeline to make sure that our community not only just survives but thrives. And that's kind of the conversation. Um, so for those who don't know you and are just tuning in, who is Irvin Spencer? Tell them, you can take that question, wherever you want to take it to. Who is Irvin Spencer?
Man, it's a complicated answer or complicated question because I don't pinpoint or I don't narrow myself down to just one thing or two. I remember playing college football. A lot of people look at you as a football player. No, I'm not a football player. Like I I use football as a way to get my education, but I'm not a football player. So like honestly, man, I read this book, The Power of Now, and I don't actually associate too strongly with any particular roles, but I just try to show up and be the best person I can to the people that I'm a chance to be around. But I'm a father, husband. I work here downtown as a financial advisor. I'm a naval officer as well too. I'm a '04 lieutenant commander. I'm in the Navy as a reservist. I'm a little bit of everything. I'm a coach to my sons on a basketball team, football team, whatever it is. Try to be a good friend, good brother. That's who I
Yeah,
am.
Love that. Not to put labels on you or anything. I look at you as like a modern day Renaissance man.
I'll take that. I'll take that.
Uh, I remember when we were talking, and you were giving me a whole lot of great financial, direction, and just helping me see the landscape of, what things I need to look out for. And we were talking, and I remember one time having a conversation. It's so sad just to see, our communities. Every time something happens in the family, I'm tired of seeing, you know, people do fish fries, to raise money for the expenses that the family incurred when they lose a loved one, when they could be, uh,
Planning.
celebrating, the life of that person, and then have things set in place to kind of take care of that. And then you gave me a whole bunch of education around that, and I was like, man, that'd be so great if we had that advice when we were younger, and somebody just to, instill that in us. And the reason why I wanted to have you on, because, you know, one, how do we get there? Two was one, but I didn't have dreams of going into the career field I'm in, and so I was wondering what are the key events in your life that kind of led to this point in your career. For me, it was having a mentor who kind of guided me to one thing, which I had met it to somebody else who guided me into the career field I am. But what were the events in your life that kind of led to where you're at this point in your career?
I think you kind of alluded to it when you was telling your story. There were just a series of events that I didn't understand how God was using them, and
Hmm.
once I tie them all together, I kind of see how He's prepared me for what I do now. I always tell like my story being from Cleveland, Ohio originally. Living here with San Diego with you right now. Being
Yeah.
from Cleveland, Ohio originally, man. Probably the first thing that happened to me that really changed my trajectory in life was my mom dying when I was
Mm-hmm.
11. Me and my little brother was home, and we heard a thump somewhere in the house. My mom would usually be gone for classes, and we go to bowling or something. One of our neighbors, they take us to our league bowling, and I woke up and the car was still in the garage or still in the driveway, and we could see it. And go to find my mom was in the bathroom on the floor. She had a heart attack. So that was one of the major things that really changed my trajectory. I had ended up being adopted by my stepfather, um, which was good and bad in the sense. Good in the sense that me and my little brother were able to stay together. Bad in the sense that his vision for me and my brother and stuff wasn't in alignment with what I had for myself and my mom had for us. And so there was a constant clash between just visions. He was an older guy. Um, he was born in the 30s, so I couldn't imagine what it was like being born down south in the 30s. So he wanted me to get like into a trade where I wanted to use my brain, and he wanted me to, not do so much in sports. But that was the way I ended up getting a full scholarship. So we just had a different vision for my life, and I would just kind of stay true to what was important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Another cool thing that happened there, my senior year in high school, I ended up moving out my house and living in my best friend's basement before
Oh,
I went
wow.
to college. And that was because me and my stepdad had fell out over money. The money that was going to the household for my mom with Social Security started coming to me instead, and it was like a power play. He's like, "Hey, it's my money." It's like, man, it's my money. My mom died and left behind. I left behind for my mom. Like, and to me, like I never really had nothing I wanted. I needed. He always took care of things we needed, but there was things that we wanted to do, and I knew where the money was going. He had a kid in a previous marriage, and he had other girlfriends. I know he was using that money to do stuff for them versus me and my little brother. So it just became to an age where you start knowing so much that it's hard to keep going through it.
Mhm.
So those probably like the two major ones. Another one I talked about or I think about when I was out here in San Diego. I was a sophomore in college. I met this black officer who was a senior officer. I don't know if you ever seen that movie Antoine Fisher.
Yeah, I remember that movie. It's been a while since I watched it.
Yeah, that movie's old. I didn't even realize how old it was. It was an old Navy movie, but that ship that Antoine Fisher was happened on, it was out here in San Diego. And the
Oh wow, I
officer
didn't
that
know
was in
that.
charge of that ship, yeah, he was a guy that I sat down and talked to, and he told me already he was a millionaire. And I'm good at asking questions. So I'm like, hey, based on what you know, what would you do different if you were me? And he said I would have started investing my money sooner. And that was all I really needed to know, that I had to go start learning more on my own to do better for myself and for my family. Um, I think the other thing, real quick, was like the interesting thing about myself is I've always been one of them self taught people where if it's something I wanted to do, I will go find a book to learn it. I
Mm.
remember I went on my first diet when I was in sixth grade. Um, fifth going to
Wait, you
sixth
on a
grade.
diet in sixth grade?
They used to call me chubby, man. He used to make jokes.
Oh.
They made one too many jokes. One too many jokes. And I was like, man, you know what? That's it for me. I went to the library, got some books on dieting, working out, and I changed my body in like a year, man. And I haven't looked back since. So
Mm,
I've always been wired that way. When I want to learn something, I'm gonna go find some books. So funny story is that my buddies tell me at college they remember me walking around school reading books. So I used to read books in between classes because playing college football and going to a Naval Academy, it wasn't a lot of time outside of school, to really focus on it.
mm. That I like
But
that. I like that. And and and
yeah,
and, and I think that's something me and you always had in common, that just that desire to make time to learn things no matter what it is. Like, and we ask questions. And I remember asking, I remember when you would sit down and, talking, some things about educating me from a financial literacy standpoint. I mean, I already had my own financial advisor at the time, but the willingness to even sit down and, educate me on the things, and then I was, vice versa, spitting back like, okay, here's what I know, but here's what I want to know is that little piece you said here that I don't know. And then you still took the time, even though you knew I had a financial advisor, like, hey, I'm gonna just educate you on what I know, and then we educated each other through the process because I would ask questions and then you would ask questions back because you were learning about me and what it is I was trying to, accomplish in my plan, and the best things from what would best assist and help. And I was like, man, I like this brother. You know what? I'm gonna set I'm gonna set my family up with him because I know he's gonna take the time and diligence to really learn what is needed and help in whatever way possible. And that's the thing that I really love about you is your willingness and desire to, just help people at every stage of their life. Where do you think that comes from? Is that like something that you got from your mom, or is this something you were inherently always had? Like,
yeah, man. I always say my purpose in life, and I didn't really get clear about this till a couple of years ago. It's just to have a positive impact on people's lives. And I know that I realized that I could do that in so many different ways, but this job gives me a unique opportunity to do it. I tell my boys all the time, though, man, when we at home and one person snacks something from the other person, whatever, I'm like, hey, man, treat people like you want to be treated. You know,
mm,
at the end of the day, and like I remember being like in a doctor's office where, I go do my review or whatever the case may be, and like you could tell where like they didn't really care about the relationship. It was more of a transaction. Let me get
mm,
you in here, look through a couple of things, and get you up out of here as fast as possible for the next person. And I don't personally resonate with that experience, and I won't want to create something I don't resonate with at all.
yeah,
And what I've also realized too, man, is a lot of people do good things with good intentions,
mhm,
but just maybe not the best way. And
yeah,
if I could just help shed some light, because I'm like, bro, we all got limited resources, time, energy, and money. Let's just
mhm,
use them as smart as possible.
mhm. I tell people that all the time. Uh, it you although you might have the greatest intent, sometimes it's more important to pay attention to the impact because intent, no matter what it was at the end of the day, if the impact isn't a positive impact, like, and it had a negative impact, it doesn't matter what the intent was because it didn't help anybody at the end of the day, right? So how can you positively impact a person, a situation. That's where the real focus should be at the end of the day. When you're looking at helping others, and I love the fact that you use purpose, because I think a lot of times in school, or jobs, careers, although our parents and teachers and sometimes other people might have the the intent of getting us into careers that will sustain us because of what they know. Sometimes the impact is I'm not doing something that's really in alignment with my purpose and allows me to, walk in my true path and calling that will have the better results and outcomes for me at the end of the day, right? So, like, I want you to expand on that a
Man,
little bit more. Like,
that's
when you
that's a
talk,
good one.
yeah, talk to me about
I would
how you see your purpose and how it, your job fits in it, and then also, you sound like you was about to expand on some other things. Go ahead. Let me not chop you off, but go ahead. Go ahead.
no,
Yeah.
yeah, I was just thinking about it, man. Like a lot of times, I think we complain about like the education system and whatnot and what it should and shouldn't be doing, but I think sometimes we gotta look at the roles that we assign people to already right now and do that, and what are really our expectations for that role, like a guidance counselor. I know in our school we had a guidance counselor for the whole grade. So
Mhm,
like if you got 300 kids, how can you really identify everybody's purpose and help them find an education or
mhm,
degree that helps align with their purpose? I just think the systems that we've kind of built in place are just broken at the very foundation. And I
mhm,
know we want to change education, but that's how are we looking at the systems itself and the roles and the things that people are expected to do, and then just really help them or figure out like where our shortcomings really are and put the
mhm,
money in the right places. Because yeah, I do think, and I hear this all the time where people
mhm,
go down paths, and I talk about this all the time, man. Like, don't chase income, chase purpose, because
mhm.
income comes when you're in alignment with your purpose.
Yes.
Um, you got to do it because I've seen people from my personal experience, my job. Um, I meet with somebody like, yeah, I went to the job, they pay X amount of dollars, boom, 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 and I've seen people take pay cuts because there's
Yep.
like, yeah, like the money was good, but the my purpose wasn't being fulfilled, and
Mhm,
I think that's something we gotta keep reckoning with. What's most important, and I think in this generation, and we can only be unhappy for so long before we gonna look for something else anyway.
yeah. So true. So true. And that's why I
So
like.
put the work in on the front end.
Yeah, that's why I put so much my focus when I'm talking to these younger folks into passion and purpose, because when I truly made the most income in my life and got the most opportunities, when I was connected to passion and purpose, because then I'm adding a value that cannot be found anywhere else, and
Nope.
people are willing to pay for that value because they see it. They see it soon as they see your passion and your purpose in alignment and full flow, and you'd be surprised what people are willing to offer you, or what opportunities come in alignment with you when you're in that special zone. And so yeah, break let's continue down this conversation of purpose. How do you see your purpose and how your job fits in with it?
I just think this job is so unique, man, where money is connected to so much of who a person is.
Mhm,
Their previous experience, their hopes, their fears, their desires. Like money is connected to all that. And so the more and more I get to hear people's story and their vision and what they want, the better I could just connect their money to help them create that. But money is so entrenched into who we are, good and bad. And I think sometimes people forget that money is a tool, more than anything else. And I just try to help them see that and help
yeah,
them make better decisions for themselves and use money the way it's intended to be used and take away the fear and the greed and get them in better alignment,
yeah,
what they're doing and where they should be long term.
yeah. See, and I try to, as much as money. What's that old saying? Money makes the world go around. I tell people money is a tool, and it's supposed to be used as a tool, as a vehicle, to a means to an end, right? So, like, if there's a life that you envision that you want to live, use money as a tool to invest to help create the life and build the life that you want to live, right? And
Right.
it can be done in so many different ways. and there's different financial vehicles that can help you do that, especially in the career that you're in. And that's
Right.
what I love about the things that you do. Um, when I know you
You
said
know that
you go ahead.
I was going to say the problem though is the problem that I find more than anything else is people just don't have clear definitions in their head first
Mm,
before they try to start putting their money to use. If you don't have a clear definition in your head, then how do you know whether or not you're in alignment with it or not?
mm,
Like if I ask somebody what financial security means to them, and they never thought about it before, then more than likely they haven't done anything to help take care of it or help create it.
mhm,
Um, so I think it's a natural like line of questions. So like I ask somebody first, what's your definition of financial security, and just let them talk. Like I don't interrupt, I just let them talk. And
mm,
then I ask them, what do you think are your biggest risk to you achieving financial security?
mhm.
And just let them talk. Not my thoughts, not my judgment, just let them talk. Figure out what they know, what they don't know. And then the third question is like, all right, now that we understand what your risks are, what have you done to prepare for them? Because
Mm,
it's one thing to ask the first question, but you need to ask the second and third question to really get down, peel that onion back, and allow people to just realize that, hey man, you know what, this is what I said was important to me,
mm,
and I either did something about it or I didn't. And I think that's the power of the conversation I try to have with people, is allowing them to just kind of peel back that onion and slow down and think about really what they want to create and see if they're in alignment with it or not.
man, you know what? I like that. Um, do you think uh when you ask those questions, one, now I'm thinking about, I feel like those questions can help people get more clear on purpose too, of what it is that they want in life, and how they could be more fulfilled in their life, because these I feel like it can help. Do you see that people start to really get more defined with what it is they want to build in life, and get closer, clearer to a vision of what that purpose is, and when you ask these questions, does it start to take them down that path?
Yeah, I think it just starts to. I just plant some seeds, man.
Yeah,
But you need the relationship to be able to continue to water it.
gotcha.
And I just try to plant the seeds, and you know, I hope that over time that help people start having more question and attitude about what they're doing and why, more than anything else. And
Mm,
then give them the space or the relationship too to help them continue to go down this thought process and help them think about themselves and their families and what they want to do long term.
man, see, this is why I always loved having conversations with you, because you have this very unique way of just working with people that allows that to happen, and that's needed for our community, because you do it in the way that our people from our community really understand, and they don't feel threatened, they don't feel like you don't start using terminologies and things that's just way over their head, and we get overwhelmed like, oh, I can't do this. I don't know if you ever had that situation where we're like, baby, that's too much. I don't know about all these IRAs, NDA, all that stuff you talk about. Yeah, I'm just cool. I'm just put some money in the bank, and I just need to have this for my
Well,
baby when they
like I've been working with your brother Adi out in New Jersey, man, and
do
like
it.
what we just did is like we had a series of 5 different conversations the last couple weeks.
Like,
Each meeting we just talk about another topic and we just kind of break that topic down, answer whatever questions. We probably spent 5 hours together the last 2 weeks of just
mm,
talking and just helping them slowly pull back. All right, what's the plans? What's the ideas? But a lot of us, man, like even in this industry, man, we so busy sometimes, and we on to the next thing that we not slowing down enough to make sure that person get from beginning to end and get them
yeah,
on a process.
and that's the most important thing. From beginning to end, and then cultivating those relationships. Uh, so one thing I always like to do, in these interviews, is because somebody's gonna be inspired by your story, and by hearing this conversation, and they're gonna immediately say, you know what, I want to do what Irvin's doing, and I think that would fulfill me. Or I'm just very, uh, I think I'm very curious, and I want to start looking into it, but I have no experience. I don't know how to pivot in my career if I'm in a dead end job. And I like to ask this question because I want to show people like, hey, there's stages to career, right? Everybody doesn't start from right in the industry they're in and then work their way up. Sometimes we have very humble beginnings, and I like to show the transition. So, uh, what was your first job, and what did you learn from your first job? It's a question I like to ask just to show people like the journey.
The journey. Yeah, man, I've done a lot of different jobs. The job that probably stuck out to me the most when I was growing up was working for the city. We used to do
Okay.
landscaping for the city. And I remember stories where like on our street that I grew up on in particular, it was like 2 to 3 miles long.
Uh-huh.
And they'd drop you off on one end of the street and meet you at the other end of the street with the truck. And you got a bucket, you got a trash can, and you
Uh-huh.
pulling weeds down the landscaping all the way down the street. Um, but it was working around like 30 and 40-year olds as a 16-year old that really opened my eyes. One, it told me that one, I don't work with my hands for the rest of my life. Like
Mhm.
being around these grown men and seeing what they were doing, um, nothing that had it against it, but it just wasn't something I wanted to do for the rest of my life. But then two, man, like because of those dudes that was around me, and because of who I am and how I ask questions, we just had some really good conversations, man. And guys be like, "Hey, Irv, man, learn from my mistakes." And
Yeah.
we'll talk about their mistakes. We'll talk about the things that they did. We'll talk about the things that derailed them, and they would just educate me through our relationships, man. One of the guys actually gave me my one of my first cars that I bought. I bought it from him, but he used to do car detailing.
Uh-huh.
You remember the Cutlass Supreme? You
Yeah,
know the
yeah, yeah.
Cutlass Supreme is?
I remember the Cutlass Supreme.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I had a Cuddy, man. Had me a Cutlass Supreme. 88 Cutlass Supreme, but I had the cleanest Cutlass in Cleveland. That was a Doughboy car in Cleveland. But I'm far from a Doughboy. My mom taught me a long time ago, man. My cousin got shot with drugs and stuff, man, in his arm. So I stayed away from that part of that path in my life a long time ago from an experience I've seen from other people. Because if I see fire, I don't have to touch it. I'm that guy. Hey,
Yeah.
that's hot. I don't need to touch that.
Mhm.
Um, but he had redid a cutty for his wife. It
Uh-huh.
had Corvette Pearl on it. It had the
Woo.
regular mags that was redone. It had T tops, bruh.
Uh,
I had the cleanest cutty in Cleveland.
what? You was out there looking like one of them
But
old players from the Himalayas.
yeah, dog. I had my sounds, everything in it. But I played my sounds where I knew I could play my sounds. I wasn't one of them dumb kids that tried to stunt on everybody because I
Yeah.
could if I wanted to. I wouldn't have done that to people, man. But no, it was that job, man. Where just being around these men. I did that job every summer too. Every
Okay.
summer I go do that job. Me and a couple of my boys would do it, and it was a blessing for a lot of different reasons.
Well, you got had some positive male mentors, grit, determination, hard work, all that good stuff. I see in that story. Now, how did you? I mean, how did you get into? Fast forward. How did you get into this industry? And then what some steps that you took to kind of get into uh, the financial. What did I call it? Do I call it the financial sector, or like how do I call this
Yeah,
industry?
well, it's a weird industry because like the title itself, financial advisor, can be used in a lot of different ways and mean a lot of different things in
Right.
different institutions. Where like they may have a financial advisor at um let's say Bank of America or something, but the financial advisor may only talk about something that he oversees, like the Roth
Uh,
IRA or something they have there at the account at the company. But they're not going to ask you about, your emergency savings. They're not going to ask you about your employer benefits. Have you done estate planning? They're not going to ask some of those other questions that actually make the full picture what you're planning. So that's the hard part about our industry. The title itself is kind of misleading because different companies use it for different ways,
mm,
or what they will and won't do um, is different.
mhm.
But what got me into this, man, I think again started going back to that conversation with the naval
Yeah.
officer who was a millionaire, like me self teaching myself for
Mhm.
years. It was funny too because I'm one of them dudes that I always tell my boys like, "Hey man, I'm reading this. I read that because I started investing when I was a junior in college.
Mm,
We got $30,000 our junior year at the academy. I took 10 and bought my ring and did some other things for it with it,
yeah,
but then the other 20 I invested. And so like I got my experience that way, and then like a lot of me and my roommates, we all traded stocks and stuff online. And so like we be in there talking about different things, we reading stuff,
yeah,
self-taught a lot of different things. Um, but then when I graduated from the academy, being a naval officer, I just really like enjoy helping my sailors. I help them with school. I help them think about finances, whatever they needed. I
yeah,
would help them with. And so just the idea of serving and helping people, because school and stuff came pretty easy to me
mm,
for the most part, or I was willing to apply myself at a different level as I needed to be successful. But I just realized that I was wired a little bit different than some of my peers and stuff, man. And I just use the things that I think God gave me to make me unique to help other people. And this job just it just kind of stepping onto my footstep. I was
nice,
looking for a job once I was getting out the military, but one of the issues with being in the military, man, is you move a lot. One, so you may not have a lot of like connections if you're not actively
mm,
working on them.
yeah,
Um, I just happened to meet one of my boys who work at my current company, and I
mm,
told him what I was trying to go through or what I was doing getting out, and he kind of put me on. But before I came to this job, I had a financial advisor at another company because I was like, man, before I become one, I want to see what it's like to be a client and see what that experience is like.
yeah,
So I did that for like a year or so before I even got out.
nice, nice. And so,
I don't know if that answered your question, but it's a lot of pieces to it.
yeah, 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 no, no. So you were able to kind of network, pseudo network. You became a client of somebody, and then got some from the client relationship side, understanding what the industry was, and then but got connected through somebody who was in the industry who helped you through the process. So I pretty much got the full story. Um, going going through and hearing you talk, one thing that came to mind is like I was like, man, how you were doing, your learning lesson and teaching others. That's kind of it just totally reminds me of what Earn Your Leisure does, and I feel like what you do, what you were doing then, and what you're doing now is now becoming like the buzz thing. Like you even hear people talk about generational wealth and getting more. It seems like people are getting a little bit more financial literacy is becoming part of the culture. How would you define generational wealth when you kind of hear that term? Because I know everybody has their own definition to it, but like, how would you define it, and how do you really help your clients achieve it?
Man, I think generational wealth is a complicated, very complicated term, and I think we use it a little bit too loosely as a culture or just like a buzzword because there are so many ways to create certain outcomes for your family. But I think sometimes people think that what works for somebody else can work for them, but not everybody wired to do the same things. And so I think people have to really I think a lot of times we lack creativity, right? And we lack knowledge to really understand like is that the right thing for me to do? Like I know why you do it, but is that the right thing for me to do? And can I get the same outcome without having to go through that route? Real estate is a good example of like, of one of those things that a lot of people get into, and you hear a lot of good stories, but sometimes you hear all the bad stories that happen along the way too. But you know, we don't have enough balance, I think, sometimes with some of these terms, and people go down paths they not really understand they're going down. But I think generational wealth starts with a lot of things. I think it starts with the home first and foremost, and that's what I kind of focus on now on my kids is what do we do in our home to create generational wealth. And I think it starts with the community that I build. So like I'm always actively looking for other men to help my kids in other areas that I can't do. Right.
Right.
I think that's one thing. For me, for example, when my mom passed away, it was the women of my friends of our church that started to come pick me and my little brother up and kept us involved in all the activities my mother would have put us in or kept us in if she was there.
Mhm.
So like I don't want generational wealth is like it's not one person dependent. It takes a
Yeah.
community to build it and to support it. I think it's the opportunities. One thing that doesn't I don't miss was that my mom, I grew up in the inner city in Cleveland for a good part of my life, probably like third, fourth grade, and then we moved out to another this suburb area, like the next step up. Um, and we just kept kind of incrementally continuing to go up a little bit till my mom passed away. But the one thing I didn't have to do that maybe some of my cousins did was, we didn't have people on the corner. Like we didn't have corner stores.
Mhm.
I didn't have to walk to school where I had to walk past a whole bunch of different things. And so I think just that opportunity to live in a different environment allowed me to think about things a little bit different.
Mm.
Than where I see my nieces and stuff struggle with now sometimes. Um, and then another one I think is just experiences, whether it's traveling, whether it's being on activities, being on certain sports. My kids are 5 and 8. They're playing flag football right now. They on basketball team. They play baseball. Like they're doing everything, bro. Everything I could think of to really just give them new experience. I even bought my boys a guitar. I have no music background at all, but I think it's a good experience for them to start figuring out like, do I like this? Is this something I may
Right.
want to get into a little bit more? And then the other one, real quick, is like education. My wife is a stay-at-home mom right now, which has been a blessing. But like, my kids are really excelling in education because of the time and investment that we put in them daily, either through reading to them, or like even correcting their homework, or giving them other ways to solve certain problems. Or when I read certain books on my oldest son, like we look up words. Like I don't just give them like definitions right off my head. Like, hey, let's write this down. We're gonna go look it up
Mhm.
and helping them trying to reinforce like some of those habits. So I
Yeah.
think that's without any money being a part of generational wealth, that's how you first started.
Ooh.
The other thing I did with my kids real quick was I'm working on making sure I transfer knowledge to my children intentionally. So I started writing a book with my memoir essentially, but I wrote a whole section in here about like 30, 40 pages about financial literacy topics. My thought process on it is whether I'm here in life or death, I want to make sure you learn certain topics. And I want you to learn them through me. And I'm gonna show you what things you may want to go research, but here's some things you need to know for yourself. And so like I'm typing that stuff up now, man. So whether I'm there to teach it or if they have to read it on their own, they will get the information from me.
Nice. I love that. Man,
But then I'm, oh,
go ahead, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
oh yeah, I'm just saying, man, like, my mind, I think about this a lot, bro, because Um, the other big thing I think about too is just being a good example. Like, how am I treating my wife? How am I communicate with my boys? Like, what are they seeing me as an example? What words are they learning from me? What mannerisms? What character? Integrity. What are they learning from me? Like, I think that all goes into just building generational wealth, man. Where not just like I said, not a financial thing, but my name, the Spencer name, it means something
Mhm.
some now, right?
Yeah.
Same thing with like my little brother followed behind me in school. Like he had a hard time because of the name I left before him. Right? I was always good in sports and I always had good grades. And so like, yeah, like if he did something wrong, they're like, hey bro, what's up? We know what
Yeah.
Irvin do. What's up with you? You know what I mean? Not my brother did really well in school too, but like there was this legacy of what that name meant when it was in your class or on the field. It
Yeah.
was a legacy behind that.
It's like, oh, you a
Um,
Spencer? Oh, okay, all
oh,
right.
yeah. I already know what I'm getting. That's legacy right there. That's generational wealth. Your name means something. People don't know who the Rockefellers are. Like
That,
the original Rockefeller gone, but they know who he is. And different things, different reasons they know him.
that, that.
But then
You
I
know,
started thinking about too. Like I know I got a long answer, but I started thinking about like, all right, if I'm maximizing, if I'm doing everything I can at home already, what's next? And the next part of that to me is making sure me and my wife will never be a burden on our children in life or death. And
Nice.
so I started thinking about what things do I need to do to ensure that my children will be taken care of and me and my wife will never be a burden. And so I just put the planning in action that makes sure we don't have any issues. Whether it's saving for retirement, whether it's making sure we got our insurance planning tight, um, I'm just making sure that that's the first thing I take care of with my money. If I'm gonna spend
Right.
any dollar, I'm gonna make sure that's taken care of first before I do anything else.
Yeah, so I want you to break that down, like, because I mean, I feel like that's phase one right there to ensure your wife and how you would break that down. But before that, like everything that this man just said, like he gave y'all like 9, 10, 11, 12 bars right there. Because all the things that he just listed outside of money, like you don't even need money for this to like. Because I know you said it for one of them, but I think it's for all of those. You don't need outside of money. These are different areas where you can, build wealth for your families. Like from what it be from community to opportunities, experiences, relationships, like me and you have, and the kids seeing that, right? Spiritual foundation. I know me and you, we opened up with prayer before we even got on here because we both have this
Yeah.
strong spiritual foundation that 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 flows through us. Conversations, education, and just being intentional of transferring that knowledge that you're going to do down to your family through writing. That's a big deal. And just being that living example, even when you gone, you have it written down as a living example. So those are if you
Well,
take anything
let me
away from
explain
this
it though
spot,
a little bit more because my mom died when I was so young, bro. But my mom was like a beast. Like she was always really active in my school. So
mhm,
all my teachers knew my mom was. She was in PTA. Like she was in everything. But she
that
worked and she worked. She wasn't a stay at home mom. She worked and she still made time to make that work. She made it really clear to us, to me, I mean, me and my little brother, like when you get home, the first thing you do is your homework.
mm,
And so even when she wasn't there, I still did the same thing. Because I think you either have a choice when something like that traumatic happened in your life, you have a choice to make it a crutch where you decide not to do better,
that
or you could actually memorialize the person and remember what their memory was, or remember what they would want for you,
yeah,
and use that as your fuel to help you make better decisions. And I really think that my mom passing away um, probably put me in a better position that I may have been if she was here the whole time,
mhm.
because her memory was so strong to me. And she used to whoop my man. She used to whoop my butt. Me and my little brother butt get in a fight. She whooped my butt. But I can remember her telling me when she was whooping my butt, man, like you always take care of your brother.
Look,
You be a good example. Like she just beat that in my butt, like literally beat that in my butt.
look,
And so like I wasn't gonna fail her in that case. I wasn't
yeah,
gonna fail my brother. I wasn't gonna
trust,
fail myself because I didn't live up to her legacy.
yeah, trust me, I felt that too because I was a stubborn kid growing up, and what my mama and granddad used to say, look, a hard head make a soft behind.
Make us off behind, boy. I don't know about that generation, but they all know that same saying.
Look. Yeah.
Sheesh.
So all right, so let's go back to that the first example you kind of got us started. You know, because I think this could be phase one of the example to like really ensure your wife will never be a burden.
Be a burden.
Yeah,
Yeah, be a burden.
and there's several things that that I think you can address to make this happen. So talk about those things in that phase one of how you would do that.
Yeah, so first thing is just basic insurance planning for yourself, man. Like life insurance planning. Have we thought through that? Like I've seen a lot of people, they've done life insurance planning, but not thoughtfully, right?
Hmm.
Like, do the term of their policies make sense?
Hmm.
I've seen people with 10-year policy, 20-year, 30-year policies. To me, like it all depends on certain things. Like a 30-year mortgage typically goes with the house mortgage. Like that makes sense, right? That's your biggest liability. You want to make sure it's taken care of. You make sure you do it. But the issue with that becomes is, especially like recently where the interest rates got so low, people refinancing their homes left and right. I've seen people refinance homes in every other year or so, right? Because the interest rate kept going down. But you
Mhm.
keep resetting that clock, that 30-year clock. And so people never go back and readjust or look at their insurance plan again and see if it makes sense for them. Income protection, most employers offer like short term and long term disability. But a lot of times, again, people are not really attention about what they have and why they have it. So I try to just help people, man. Like, look, if you're sick or injured, you need to make sure the bills continue to get paid, but you also need to make sure you still have the ability to save money because
Mhm.
all your goals that you want long term require money. So if you don't have as much money coming in, that means that your goals gonna have to change one way or another, and so that's important. One thing I work with right now a lot in my own family, older aunties and stuff is like long term care planning.
Mhm.
Man, and I got a lot of young clients too, man, where I'm talking to their parents and stuff. I'm like, look, you know, y- if you don't plan for this, your plan becomes your children. And the way we are situated right now, you as an example, your family's on the East Coast, you live over here in the West Coast,
Mhm.
right? And so you become, if you're the only sibling, do you move to go get closer, or do you move your parents to have them closer to you? And what's the impact of that? What's the impact of being a caregiver for somebody? I think a lot of us don't really think through that a lot. And because of technology, we only live it longer. And so you have to
Mhm.
plan for that better.
Mhm.
Um, Estate plan is another big one. Making sure that, when people pass away, especially when your kids are young and they not able to receive certain assets at certain points, you
Mhm.
need to have plans and you need to have estate planning in place to make sure that one, you have someone that oversees the money until they get of age, and then two, maybe you want to make sure you don't give them too much money too soon where they're not mature enough to manage it properly.
Mhm.
This is really the biggest issue that happened in my life, with my mom passing away. um, Actually, one of my family members actually sold my mom her life insurance policy that she had. But again, I don't think it was an intentional thought to the most part, at least to how I think about stuff on like on the amount and
Mhm.
what to have to protect our family. But then there wasn't estate planning to make sure that my mom, since my stepfather, I don't think she would thought that we would been with my stepfather if she would have passed away anyway, right? I don't think that would have been in her story. Um, Real talk, just being transparent. If my mom was alive, I think her and my stepfather may have been divorced at some point, just based on what I remember from when I was growing up.
Mhm.
And so, like, for that still be the person that I was left to when she passed away is kind of crazy when you think about it that way. But if she would have had a estate plan, and she could have made sure that one, me and my brother was taken care of, and maybe my stepdad taking care of to some extent, and then made sure it was some money left aside for me and my little brother as we got older.
Mhm.
Um, if that was her goal, if that was the outcomes that she wanted to create. So
Mhm.
those a lot, man. And then the other one is like saving for retirement, like really basic, but like a lot of times people, they hear stuff around the water cooler, like using the Navy term. They hear stuff in passing, but they never really thought beyond it, beyond the initial thought. Like I hear people all the time putting in only 3% or 5% in a 401k because that's all they can match. That's all the match they get.
Mhm.
I'm like, yeah, bro, but your plan based on the outcomes you want to require 10% or 15%.
Mhm.
You know, don't stop at the 2 or 3% or 3 or 5% because you heard someone else do it. Like, how much do you need to save to get where you want to be long term?
Mhm.
Um, a lot of thought don't go into that before they do it. It just, I'm
Mhm.
busy at work. I was just looking through some paperwork. I set it up and I just forgot about it.
Mhm. Yeah.
But if you really do all those things, or if you have a conversation or a thought process behind all those things, like I can't really think of anything else that, um, any other way that you could prevent yourself or what else you have to do. But I can't think of anything else that, is better than protecting your family than making sure those things are taken care of, and the medical insurance piece too. But
Yeah. Yeah. And
just a whole
yeah,
list, man.
yeah, that is the whole lesson. I love the way you broke it down too. So, in your mind, what is like the biggest financial issue you think people should be aware of? Because I think sometimes people overlook some of the things that they should be aware of because they only hear the water coolers talk, or they only do whatever the minimum requirement of what. the job tells you, or whoever that person who handles 401ks at the job or whatever, and they just do the bare minimum based on what that knowledge they get. So, in your humblest opinion, what's the biggest financial issues you think people should be aware of?
Oh, I came up with a whole list for this too, bro, because I just try to be thoughtful, man. I think one reason I think so much is because I've never had someone to sit down. I always try to look for a mentor growing up, and I
Yeah,
always had a hard time finding a black male mentor that could really help me through some different things.
yeah,
And so I always figured out, how do I become that mentor that I never had?
yeah,
And so I just think I think a lot more because I feel like I'm thinking for myself. I'm not pulling information from someone else that came in front of me to help me think through this
mm,
stuff. Um, but man, it seems so simple to me because of how I think about things, but just simple stuff, man, like how do a person figure out what they can buy versus what they can afford?
hmm,
I don't know how many people I meet, man, who just overspending in different categories, whether it's housing, their mortgage, or their rent is too high relative to their income, or they driving a car, paying for a car that they really just can't afford, because it's too high of a percentage of their income. So I use percentage to help people figure out what you can buy, what you can afford. What you can buy is what the bank say, hey, I make $70,000 a year. What can I get pre-approved for? They may tell you, hey, we give you 30 racks. That don't mean you need to go use all 30.
mm.
That don't mean you need to use all 30. And that's the difference between what you can buy and what you can afford is, yeah, the bank say you eligible for this amount because you got this income, but what you can afford allows you to save money, travel, do the things that's really important to you and not just pay a bunch of bills.
Yeah,
So I think that's a big one, man. Just buying versus what you can afford.
uh-huh.
Um, I think another one is like people don't think holistically. And part of it,
Mm,
man, if I'm honest with myself, is like a lot of the things that I think through now, I didn't think through when I was initially doing all these things too. When I started investing my first time, like I wasn't thinking about, well, did I have enough money for emergency savings first before I start putting my money in the stock market? So if something did happen, I don't have to start selling my investments prematurely.
yeah,
Like that's thinking holistically. It's you know, I had a couple young guys that want to buy cars. I'm like, all right, bro, cool. What's your student loan payment? I know you just graduated a year ago, but
hmm,
your student loan is in deferment. How much is the student loan payment right now if you had to go pay tomorrow? I don't even know. Like, you should think about that first before you start bringing on another payment. Then, right? I just, you know what I'm saying? Like, people just don't think holistic, man. We have an idea and we go act on it, but don't think about the ramifications or the consequences in
yeah,
other areas too.
true story. But
Another good one, real quick, is making bad assumptions, man. I think with financial planning, a big part of what you have to do is make good assumptions. Like, when do I want to retire? How much income do I want to have in retirement? What's my potential tax bracket going to look like on how many taxes I'm going to pay when I get to retirement? What rate of return do I need on my money? Because a lot of times, if you don't have good assumptions, then you don't really know if you're making the right decision or not.
yeah,
I guess I got a whole list of these things, man.
no, no,
It's all I think
I
about.
love it because this is needed because we don't often talk about this in community, right? Or at least in our families and communities. And I want to start, normalizing these conversations and hopefully, this plants a seed like in people's brain, and then whoever the next person they come in contact with can water it, or they can come and talk to us. And of course, if they talk to me, I'm just going to refer them straight to you. But this is a conversation that needs to be had in our community that is definitely not talked about. Um, and so I
Can I give you
appreciate.
two more
Yeah, yeah,
that I think is
give me
really
two
important real
more. Okay,
quick?
we got time. Go ahead.
I think people don't value relationships enough, in my opinion.
Okay, break
For
that
whatever
down.
reason, man, I think like because of Amazon and different
Yeah.
things, man, like everything becomes so transactional, bro. You
Mm,
know, all these websites now it's like, hey, let's compare the prices between this airline and this hotel. Let's make sure you pay the cheapest price. And sometimes people don't realize, man, like sometimes you pay extra because you get extra, right? Like
Yeah.
there's a different experience that you get out of it, maybe paying a little bit more money. What I think people don't do is understand how to separate expense versus value.
Right.
I tell people, man, pay for what you find value in.
Hmm.
Don't focus on just what the cost is, because I think cheap could be expensive if you don't plan properly, if you don't know better.
Man, I think this is the perfect time to insert a bar from the great philosopher, Mr. Jay Z, Sean, aka Sean Carter. People know the cost of everything, but the value of
Facts.
nothing.
Facts. Man, because, man, like sometimes, man, again, it's just, I mean, my industry is definitely into it a lot where you could look online and start this account for free, start this for free, do this for free. And like, yeah, it's just a way to attract you, right? That's just a way to attract you. But it's free for a reason, because you got to go do everything by yourself. Like, yeah, like why would I charge you to come in here? I just give you a platform to do research on, but you got to research on your own, right?
Mhm.
And then only if you have a certain account size do we will we be willing to actually sit down and talk to you, like just to capture people to come in to their platforms and to their systems, man. But yeah, that one probably drive me crazy or anything else. I'm
Okay.
getting into this with my wife all the time too, even trying to find a photographer or a plumber. I'm like, look, man, I ain't always trying to pay the cheapest price. I'm trying to pay for a good relationship. Like, hey, bro, hey, the sink is bad again. Would you come on out? Like, I want somebody that I could just call. Hey, what's up, Roberto? Whatever the dude my name is, man, come on to the
That,
crib, man. This happened again. Like, I want that relationship. I
that,
had one of my guys who told me, "Hey, Irv, like, you know, you really don't want me to come out for that job. Like, I wanted to be able the people to know me well enough that they could tell me, like, nah, Irv, you actually want to do this instead of that. Like, don't call me for that, bro. Like, that don't help you none." I had
yeah.
one dude, man. My wife wanted to do some stuff in the bathroom, and he just told me, man, like, hey, for the cost that you want, man, what it'll cost me to do what you asked me to do, like, you just better off doing X, Y, and Z. And I did that instead, man. He didn't end up making no money of it, but anytime I had something come up, I call him first.
Hmm. That, and that's the difference between cost and value. Because the same way, my mechanic, a good friend of mine, is named Archie, and he has saved me so much money, like, and got me the things that I needed to get fixed on my vehicle fixed in the time frame that it needs to get fixed to save me that money. So, like, look, yeah, we can fix that, but I think you should take care of this first to see if it's even worth going that route, right? He doesn't just fix it.
Right.
He tells me, like, all right, that's good, but here's another plan that I suggest, right? Then we
And that's
decide.
having an abundant mindset, man. Like, if you provide good service, people gonna come back to you. Like,
Right,
if I know I could trust my mechanic that every time something go wrong, I know he gonna tell me what I need to hear, not what pays for the most. Like, that means a lot. That means a lot. I'm gonna come all the time, and I'm gonna bring people with me.
yeah, absolutely. So I love that. I love that. So, um, tell me a little bit more about, because I think, another thing that I want us to talk about, is relationship with money, and I think some certain people struggle with their relationship with money, and I know I did early on, and then I'm better now, and I'm still even getting better with it as I go. Tell me about your relationship with money and how you got better with your relationship with money over time.
Yeah, I think I grew up with a strained relationship with money because money was a source of a lot of arguments. It
That,
was a source of incontentment. It was a source of frustration growing up. And so, one thing I always said in my head was that I won't let money be a reason, or I don't want money to be a reason me and my wife is falling out, or um, that we don't maintain. My mantra was a happy, healthy home. Like, I didn't want money to be the reason that we didn't. So, it's a ever evolving process, man.
mhm,
I wish I could say I got it all together, but I'd be lying. As I continue to evolve, the one thing I want to do is become more generous with what God has been giving me, man, and just be a good steward of it.
mhm,
I think at different stages in my life, I hoarded it where I was like, man, like I'm afraid to do anything with it. There were different stages in my life when I was too aggressive with it, you know, trying to think I'm chasing chasing returns or chasing investments or chasing new ideas.
Mhm.
Now I'm at a place now where, man, money is a tool where, like, this other day, taking a car to the shop. I don't know about y'all, but every time I take to the car to the car dealer, like, I take it in for the oil, but I need a new tire for some reason. Like, bro, I didn't even take a look at that. But but the guy hit me up, man, and told me one of the boots on the left side of the car was bad, man. And like, I'm at peace where, like, we got the emergency savings set. I'm like, yeah, man.
Mhm.
Like, one thing I don't never do is I don't never let a safety issue in our vehicle exist. My wife and my kids are in that vehicle all the time, they van. So anything that's wrong with brakes, steering, ruts, any of that stuff, man, like, yeah, it's no question. Fix it ASAP.
Mhm.
Fix it right now. But it's because I got emergency savings and I'm not taking money. You know what I'm saying? Like, I already planned for that. Like, emergency savings, it's not saying that, what if something gonna happen. Like, no, we know something gonna happen. It's just a matter of when it's gonna happen.
Mhm.
So that's why you have it in place. Like, yeah, like, I'm not emotional about decisions. It's a tool. Like, yeah, it's broke, man. Fix it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for bringing it to my attention because I don't like dealing with cars. I don't like
Mhm.
working on cars. So yeah, I tell the dudes I talk to him on the phone. To like, hey, look, bro, I trust that you're gonna tell me what I need to do for my family.
Mhm.
If you said we need to do X, Y, and Z, let's do X, Y, and Z. Like, I'm not gonna go back and forth with you, man. Like, the money's there for my family to protect them, and that's how I'm gonna use my money to do it. I just made some changes on my insurance planning myself too, man, because just thinking long term and what I want to be doing for my family, it requires me to make some changes that previously I didn't do. My first plan initially was to make sure if I die tomorrow, that my family had enough money to take care. My wife had enough money to take care of herself and the kids. Um, but now as I continue to think more and define things for myself, like, well, if I really want to create this, I gotta start doing this a little bit different. And
Mhm.
so, um, like I said, my relationship is just getting involved in where money just a tool for me that's part of my tool belt that I use to create outcomes, create financial security for my family.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that's where it's at. But I want to get to the point where I think I'm generous now, but I always say, man, I want to give more to this world than I ever take from it.
Mhm.
And so I want to just continue to be a river where things flow through me. It don't get stuck in me. I want to just continue to flow through me. So, like, I got cousins and stuff. A cousin Irv or whatever. I need some help. I need this. Like, boom, whatever I could do to help you, and not only give you money, but let's sit down and talk about your goals. Let's sit up down and talk about why you doing certain things. Like,
Mhm.
not just giving the money, but being generous with my time,
Yeah.
as well too. I had my niece. I was helping financially, man. I realized for her, it wasn't my money she needed; it was my time she needed, and
Mhm.
things didn't really change for her until I gave her more of my time.
Mhm.
But in the absence of time, I just gave money. But at least with her in particular, I'm like, nah, I can't give you money first. I gotta give you time first,
Mhm.
and then we could talk about like how money may help your situation. But you need my time more than anything else.
Man, I love that. I love that. And I'm on the same wavelength as you because I try to add value no matter where I go. Either add value or be uh, um, there in the space to uh, be in partnership with whoever it is that I'm in space with, right? So that
Right.
I'm not just always taking, right? I'm also giving and reciprocating. And then when you think about money too, the one thing I think about when I think about money, from listening to you talk and then, some experiences that I have, you know, instead of hoarding that, I feel like it should be in circulation. I mean, if you think about, some of the terms they use, especially government and so forth, or economies, they talk about circulating money, and money's meant to be in circulation. That's how you develop, uh, um, you know, infrastructures, systems, economies, and so forth. So
Yeah.
it's not meant to be hoarded, and that's how you grow wealth by putting it in circulation, having it work for you. If it's just staying stagnant, or if it's always outgoing and never coming back in or being shared, then you never going to grow in wealth, and you're never going to be able to grow the family's wealth. So you have to have it out there working, have it being in circulation, giving, so that you can receive. and it comes back
Yeah,
to you.
it come back.
Like,
But going back to that whole attitude towards money, man, like I've seen people like physicians, for example, that I work with, where like because of the student loan debt that they had, like all they could really think about before they did anything else was I need to pay this debt off. And that was the mindset they were stuck in for years. And then this one person I work with in particular, I had to give her permission. Like, no, like you doing what you need to be doing. You okay financially? Like, you can actually do more for yourself than you allow yourself to do. And so that's also been interesting too, where people who making good money who live in these constructs in our mind, and they're not using money as a tool. And it's funny, man. Like I see people doing really well, and then people who not doing so well financially spending money on everything. I'm like, well, you need to
man,
be in the other direction. Like, you need to slow down some, and this person need to actually pick it up some and do more things that
exactly.
really find value to them, experience with their family, all that good stuff. But yeah, we all have a story that we tell ourselves about money, and that story dictates on how we use it.
Nah, because you have some people in the community that like, oh, money is the devil. It's the root of all evil, and
It's the
that's
love of
sure.
money. The Bible says it's the love of money. It's not
But
money the problem itself. It's the love of money.
exactly, and so that's why the stories that we tell about money, or just that the education that we may not know around money. So that's why I feel like financial literacy is so important, and it's not really taught in schools. And so you have to educate yourself or get around people that allow you to get the education you need um, around financial literacy and money. And
Mate,
so,
I'm sorry, real quick. You said something about it's not being taught in schools, and I think there's a reason why it's not taught in school. One, it's a complicated topic to teach. There's so many different parts of money that I don't think there's enough time for a teacher to actually, or a class to get you every level that you need to about money to help you out with it. I think money is one of those things you need to learn at home, first and foremost, and it may be further enhanced at school, but the root of it should be learned at home.
yeah, yeah, I agree. And then if we get more people in our community learning those foundations at home to pass it down to the kids, and then that way, whatever they pick up in school, they can, you know, elevate it to the next level from whatever they learn from their ground roots of their parents. So, me and you could probably talk for hours, but I try to keep this like a drive time. So
Yeah, yeah.
let's end the podcast like this. You told me you were working on the book, so tell me more about this book.
Real quick is like, I thought about, again, my mom passing away. I thought about what lessons do I want to teach my kids. I read the Bible last year in a year, and I listened to like a sermon like every time I'm in my car, when I go to the gym. And there's all these lessons and these gems that I'm learning, man, that I remember at the lunch dinner table with my kids sometimes, like my son may say something. I'm trying to put up so much game on him, right now, but like he's 8. Like, bro, is he really ready to receive this gift that you're trying to give him right now? And like, I just don't take it. I don't want to take it for granted that I will be there when he's old enough to receive the information I want to give to him.
Mhm,
And so part of it is like I want to sit down and define things that are important to me. What does it mean to be a man? I don't want culture to teach my son what it means to be a man.
yeah.
Um, what does success mean to me? Because I read Michelle Obama book, memoir Becoming, and she talked about how she struggled with her purpose in life and the job that she was doing, because she felt bad doing a different job that didn't pay as much, because all the time and energy her dad put in her to go through Yale.
Mm,
And the memory I had, or thought I had, was like, man, I think your dad did that, made those sacrifices so you can make different decisions than he had to.
mhm,
He did it because he needed to, he had to, right? Like, he didn't have any choices, but he gave you choices.
mhm.
And I think that's what we all want as parents, is to give our children choices and toil with purpose, and not just what their income is.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like I want to just slow down and write those things, man. Like when I was saying like being the definition of being a man, one thing I was reading with the in the Bible, what King David and Solomon, when David was about to die, he told Solomon to be strong and act like a man.
Mhm,
And in my mind, the first thing I thought was like, bro, I just read your whole story. you did, you took Bathsheba, like you did all these different things, like good and bad. You wasn't a present father. That's why your other two sons are dead. Like you did all these different things. And what part of your life reflects the definition that you want him to take? Like what words, what's your actions that help your son know when you tell him to be a man that he saw it in you to
Mhm,
know what that means,
mhm.
right?
Yeah,
Like that was just so deep to me when I really thought about that some more. And so like now I'm really thoughtful about my worries and my actions. I'm not perfect by
yeah,
any means, but at least I'm gonna slow down and think about it. Like I'm gonna tell my son, I wrote in there was like being a man is not being it's not, you know, laying your royal oats, like,
yeah,
being a serial fornicator. That's not being a man. Um, Not saying that I didn't do certain things in my growth growing up, but when I did certain things or when I let things happen was mainly because I was out of purpose.
yeah,
I didn't see that person for the value that they brought to this world, right?
right,
And like it was just because I didn't have no one to help speak into my life that way, to help me see this woman differently, right? So I don't know, man. Like
yeah,
in my mind, at least I say, my kids gonna run through some problems, but if I do a good job, it won't be the same problems I had.
yeah.
They gonna have
And
their
that's
own problems, but it
and
won't be
that's
the
the goal
same.
in
So
life. It's for them to get to a different level, and once they, hopefully, it's the old saying, when you know better, you do better, and hopefully because they know better because of what we've installed in them, they can do better than what we did, and they have a different life, a different set of problems that they have, because that's what we hope for each generation. Like we currently, like me and you, we are who our previous generation have prayed for and hoped
for
for. Like we are, and so we're standing on the shoulders of them, and then our kids are going to stand on the shoulders of us to keep progressing to they get to the ideal vision of all our ancestors and us collectively, what we hope and wish for the future for 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 our offspring and the next generation. So yeah,
yeah.
that's what we do it for.
But
So
I would definitely challenge everyone to just sit down and write down things, man, the lessons. Like, don't let those lessons be lost,
like
because they just wasn't taught.
like and we probably have to get you on for another episode because I know that, see, this man loves journaling, or he's into the journal. That's why he's telling you write those things down. And we might have to say that for a different episode. But um, let before we head out, how you already told me one of the projects you're working on. How can people get in touch with you? How can they find you? Anything else that you got going on that you want to get to the people before we sign off?
Yeah, well, in your podcast, man, if I can, I'll just send like a description, like a link to my email. There could be a link in there where you can schedule an initial meeting with me, just to have a conversation. I love to hear your vision, your story, what you want to create, and we could think creatively together and collaboratively together on how do we help you create that.
Yeah.
Um, so I love to just put my information in the description or something where
Oh
people want to
yes.
reach out, even just ask me a question. Like, don't feel like you have to have it all together,
Yeah.
to have a conversation. Like I said, I'm here to just give and help, wherever I can, whether just send you a couple tools, to help out resources.
Love that. Love that. Irvin Spencer, ladies and gentlemen, a handful of knowledge. I definitely want to have him back again to talk about different topics as they come up. Or you guys email me. Let me know what topics you would like Irvin to come back here and talk about, and we'll talk about it. And yeah, we'll go from there. I'm gonna get all this information, put the show notes in the link. Uh, let's do it like this. Send us out with some last words, words of wisdom to log us off.
Man, I would just say, again, chase purpose, not income. Life is too short. Leave a legacy that matters. That starts with your name.
Mm, there you have it. I can't even paraphrase that any better than what it was. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to another episode, and I'll see you on the next.